Tonight we wander somewhere that shouldn't exist at all, a place the maps refuse to acknowledge. The kind of place that makes satellite data squirm and historians fidget with their glasses. You stand amid wind-blown dunes, where the sand has half swallowed an outline of streets that once meant something. The silence hums in your ears, thick as velvet. Even the air feels ancient, like it's been holding its breath for centuries. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch beside a toppled column. It's smooth, too smooth for the rough chisels you'd expect from ancient masons. The base glitters faintly, crystalline, not stone but something fused, melted maybe, as if lightning itself had shaped it. The air smells faintly metallic, like ozone after a storm. Somewhere beyond, a ridge cuts the horizon, and you realize the pattern of mounds and shadows around you isn't random. It's a city grid, only half visible under centuries of shifting dust. Historians call this site an anomaly, which is academic code for "we have no idea." According to official surveys, there's nothing older than a few medieval trade posts here, but the ruins tell another story. Massive foundations arranged in cardinal precision, the kind you'd expect from modern engineering. A drone scan, yes. The one that briefly trended online before vanishing showed perfect right angles beneath the sand, spanning nearly 10 square kilometers. That's not natural. You brush away a patch of dust from what looks like pavement. The material is black, glassy, rippled, like obsidian, but laced with silver veins that catch the low light. It's too uniform to be volcanic. You tap it with your knuckles, it rings. A soft metallic note, maybe some kind of ancient concrete. Or maybe, as one fringe researcher suggested, it's the byproduct of an energy event, something that melted the landscape but left the geometry untouched. You imagine the city alive again. Streets pulsing with quiet machinery. Hazy lights gliding along rails embedded in the stone. Towers that breathed steam, not smoke. The people, who were they? You see flashes. Long cloaks. Metallic insignias. Hands calloused not from plows but from levers and switches. They lived in a world that seemed to hum. The wind sighs, sifting more sand away. Beneath it, a doorway reveals itself, a rectangular frame leading downward into blackness. You hesitate, partly because it's probably unsafe, partly because some instinct deep in your ribs whispers that this place has been waiting for someone exactly like you, which is flattering, in a slightly cursed way. You step closer. Around the doorway, carvings spiral outward in concentric circles. They're not decorative. Each ring seems to mark an astronomical alignment: solstice here, equinox there, all perfectly spaced. A mainstream archaeologist might call it symbolic geometry, the way they label things when they can't explain the math. But the precision rivals Renaissance astronomy. Who were these ancient mathematicians operating millennia early? You feel the cool draft exhaling from below. It smells of earth, iron, and something faintly electric. You switch on your flashlight. Yes, this is the part where every viewer yells, "Don't go in there," but you do. Because curiosity and insomnia are terrible co-conspirators. The steps descend in narrow spirals. Each one is carved from a single block of that same black material. You run your hand along the wall. It's slightly warm, as if it's been absorbing sunlight through the sand above. You stop halfway down and glance at the ceiling etched with tiny raised dots. Star maps. You recognize Orion, except one of the stars is missing. Or maybe it was never drawn. A mainstream historian once compared this site to the ruins at Derinkuyu in Turkey, ancient underground cities with ventilation systems far beyond their supposed age. But Derinkuyu is a maze of human-scale chambers. This feels engineered. The air moves smoothly, like it's being guided by design. A whisper of airflow, consistent and directional, as though the tunnels were once part of a machine. Halfway down, your flashlight flickers. You joke quietly, because it's easier than panicking. Of course it does. The darkness presses closer. You take another step and hear a faint chime. Not metal on stone, but a tone. Musical. Harmonic. You pause, swing the beam toward the sound. There's a plate embedded in the wall, etched with lines that look like circuitry, though they're worn smooth with age. You tap it again. It sings back in perfect pitch. Some claim Tartarian architecture resonated literally. Buildings tuned to frequencies that enhanced energy flow or consciousness, depending on how many crystals one has purchased that month. Fringe? Sure, but the fact remains. These structures sometimes produce sound when struck, and their acoustic precision is measurable. Maybe it's just good design. Maybe it's something deeper. The tunnel widens into a chamber. Dust drifts in your light like tiny ghosts. The walls curve upward into a dome, each block locked so precisely you couldn't fit a credit card between them. At the center lies a circle of metal, dull bronze or copper, etched with a six-pointed design. You kneel beside it, feeling that faint vibration under your hand. Still active, after all this time. Archaeologists have found similar discs elsewhere, most notably under fortresses in Kazakhstan and Mongolia. Mainstream theory says they were ritual altars, but the composition bronze alloyed with traces of iridium suggests industrial application. Iridium doesn't just show up casually. It's used today in high-heat instruments and electrical contacts. So what, exactly, was being conducted here? You imagine the ceiling once glowing with that soft Tartarian light. Some chroniclers mention no torches, no smoke, just a pale luminescence that never flickered. Maybe natural phosphor, maybe an ancient chemical trick, or maybe something simpler. They harnessed magnetic resonance, the way Nikola Tesla dreamed centuries later. You catch yourself smiling. The modern mind loves to graft new science onto old mystery. It's comforting, in a way like wrapping myth in aluminum foil. But here, standing in the charged quiet, you feel that strange overlap between legend and circuitry. You whisper aloud, just to test the space. Your voice bounces back, delayed, warped, almost melodic. For a second, it feels like the room hums in response, a low, sleepy note that seems to vibrate behind your teeth. You laugh nervously and say, "Okay, that's enough ancient karaoke." When you climb back to the surface, the sky has changed color, muted purple along the horizon, stars bleeding through. The dunes look different, rearranged, as if the city shifts subtly when unseen. You wonder if that's just exhaustion, or if the land itself remembers. The wind carries something soft, like distant chimes. Maybe more of those resonant plates. Maybe it's just wind through hollow stone. Either way, it sounds almost like language. You kneel once more, brushing your fingers through the fine dust covering what used to be a street. Underneath, you glimpse the faint glimmer of patterns, squares within circles, like a code etched into the earth. A layout meant to be read from the sky. A mainstream fact for grounding. Archaeologists have indeed uncovered unexplained geometric ruins across Central Asia, their precision predating verified cartographic tools. No one knows who built them or why. Some scholars suggest forgotten steppe cultures. Others whisper about civilizations erased not by war, but by redaction. And then there's that fringe tidbit, the rumor that certain satellites glitch when passing overhead, their compasses spinning for a moment, like the Earth remembers a map we've deleted. You exhale slowly, feeling the air vibrate in your chest, like the city is breathing with you. Maybe the past isn't buried after all, maybe it's just waiting for the right kind of silence. You wake to the sound of gravel shifting beneath your boots, a dream of ruins giving way to something bigger. The desert has changed overnight. The stars are gone, replaced by a faint, silvery haze that makes the horizon melt. When you climb a low ridge, the landscape unfurls like a blueprint. Lines stretch for miles, perfectly straight, geometric, deliberate. Not paths, not rivers, grid lines. At first glance, they seem like dry creek beds or ancient irrigation channels. But as the morning light strengthens, you realize they're too straight, too evenly spaced. They cross each other at immaculate right angles, forming a lattice across the plain. It's as if someone or something once drafted this land using instruments far more precise than compass and rope. You glance at your GPS. The coordinates flicker, then stabilize, then flicker again, as though the system itself can't quite decide which reality to believe. You squint toward the far edge, where the grid lines disappear under dunes and low hills. You can't help but think, no human civilization from the supposed timeline of antiquity could have done this, and yet here you are, standing in the middle of what may once have been the world's largest architectural diagram. The mainstream explanation is polite, academic, and full of hedging phrases. Satellite images of Central Asia, particularly around the Kazakh steppe, have revealed these strange rectilinear patterns. Officially, they're attributed to ancient irrigation systems or Soviet experiments in collective farming. But when you overlay the patterns on older maps, a weird thing happens. They line up perfectly with long-erased place names, cities supposedly mythical, marked only in early Tartarian charts. You trace the line with your foot. The ground is firm, packed with crushed stone and shards of something ceramic. When you tap one with your boot, it clinks. Glassy again. You pick up a fragment, a corner of something tile-like. The color is faintly green. Its surface etched with minuscule squares so regular they form a pattern only visible under the shifting light. Like microcircuitry, or maybe that's just your imagination after one too many late-night documentaries. Still, the geometry haunts you. It's intentional. Every 90-degree turn, every axis perfectly aligned to magnetic north. Scholars at the University of Tomsk once published a quiet paper on lost Tartarian geometries, which got politely buried under conference proceedings no one reads, but they noted something remarkable. These ancient grid lines appear to correspond not to topography or water flow, but to celestial coordinates. The same patterns mirrored in early star charts. Cities planned like constellations. You breathe out slowly, tracing the air with your eyes Orion's belt. The Pleiades, Cassiopeia. Could entire urban networks have been aligned to the heavens? Mainstream Egyptology already admits the Great Pyramids were star-aligned. But Tartaria? That name alone makes historians tense up. Like someone said, flat Earth at a science fair. And yet, as the wind brushes dust from the ground, another square emerges, then another. The grid extends far beyond visible ruins. Maybe the city beneath isn't one city at all. Maybe it's an interconnected system, roads, channels, energy lines. You remember those fringe videos claiming Tartarian cities were powered by Earth resonance, using geometry to amplify telluric currents? Fringe, yes, but then again, who builds 10-square-kilometer fractals into the soil just for aesthetic value? You kneel, pressing your palm against the dirt. Warm again, always that faint warmth, like the land retains a pulse. You close your eyes. In your mind, the grid flares with light, soft blue lines glowing like veins under translucent skin. You picture towers at each intersection, domes humming with magnetism, streets paved with conductive metals. Maybe this was their power network. Or maybe you've just been awake too long. There's a buzzing sound behind you. For a second, you think it's a drone, but it's only the wind whistling through an open trench. You wander toward it. The trench cuts deep stone blocks forming a perfect trough, smooth and evenly laid. If this was irrigation, it was made for gods, not crops. Down in the trench, you find faint markings, numerical inscriptions, but not in any known numeral system. They look like a fusion of Arabic and runic characters, each looping back into itself. You trace one with your fingertip. The shape feels oddly familiar, like a circuit diagram from an engineering manual. You chuckle under your breath. Ancient civil engineers, huh? Guess they really took their zoning laws seriously. A dust devil twists nearby, kicking up sand and shards of reflective material. For a moment, sunlight scatters into rainbows. You watch it spin and think of how easy it would be to lose everything under 1 century of storms. Then 2, then 1,000. The entire city erased by wind and denial. You climb back up and notice a strange shimmer ahead. The heat? No, this light ripples too rhythmically. You walk closer. Embedded in the soil is a long metallic line, bronze or copper, stretching perfectly straight until it vanishes into haze. A buried conductor? A decorative inlay? Mainstream archaeologists occasionally find copper lines beneath ancient sites, usually dismissed as water markers or lightning rods. But this one feels deliberate, part of the geometry itself. You follow it until your compass spins again. Magnetic interference. That old, familiar friend. Somewhere beneath your feet. The earth hums faintly. You place your ear to the ground, it's there. a deep, slow vibration, like distant machinery, idling after ages of sleep. A scholarly debate stirs in your memory. Whether pre-industrial societies could have understood magnetic ley lines, those natural alignments of energy running through the planet's crust. Most academics call it pseudo-archaeology. But some geophysicists admit that magnetic anomalies often coincide with ancient monuments. Coincidence? Maybe. But you can't ignore the pattern. Sacred geometry, magnetism, power, always together. You step back and imagine how this grid might have looked from above. A vast circuit board of stone and metal. The ancients didn't need satellites, they built their maps into the earth itself, then a faint tremor underfoot, a shift, almost imperceptible. The copper line glints once more before the light fades. You blink hard. Did it move? No. Probably the heat haze again. Still, something about this land feels alive, responsive. You start walking back toward camp, tracing the line with your eyes. The symmetry comforts you. Humans crave order even in ruins. Yet these lines are too perfect. You can't help feeling like you're being measured in return, weighed by geometry itself. Back at your tent, you unfold an old copy of the 1850 Tartarian map, one of those oddities from European archives showing rivers and towns in places that don't exist on modern charts. You place the map over a satellite printout and align them by latitude. There, one overlap, then another. The forgotten grid lines match vanished names. Ashtara, Velok, Tirgan, each one perfectly positioned. You whisper, "You shouldn't exist." Half to the map, half to the wind. Somewhere out there, beyond the dunes, the earth waits beneath its invisible scaffolding, ancient and methodical. You fold the paper again, careful not to tear it. The grid might be old, but it still feels precise enough to slice time itself. Before sleep, you glance at the horizon, the lines, the geometry, the quiet hum beneath the soil. They linger in your thoughts. You imagine Tartarian engineers standing on these same plains centuries ago, surveying their work with pride, drawing invisible constellations across the ground. If the world has forgotten them, maybe the earth hasn't. Maybe it still remembers its architects, quietly glowing under layers of dust, waiting for someone foolish or brave enough to listen. Morning light slides over the plain like a slow tide of gold, and the city grid behind you fades into mirage. You trudge east, where broken pillars begin to jut from the sand like fossilized smoke. The wind whistles through hollow stone tones, low and metallic, almost mournful. And then you see them, the remains of something mechanical. At first glance, it looks like a pile of corroded sculpture, interlocking wheels, half-buried shafts, coils fused into rock. But the deeper you dig, the clearer the pattern becomes. Not art, machinery. Ancient, enormous, and incomprehensibly sophisticated. You brush sand from a curved housing that looks suspiciously like a turbine casing, except it's made of marble. Not metal, marble. Carved to interlock like industrial parts. Whoever built this thought in precision tolerances, not mythic aesthetics. You mutter to yourself, engines of stone, and the phrase sticks. It feels right. The air even smells faintly oily, though that could just be wishful thinking. There's a low hum here too, barely perceptible, like vibration echoing through solid earth. You crouch beside one of the exposed gears 6 feet across, smooth as porcelain, teeth perfectly even. It shouldn't exist. Marble doesn't wear like this unless it's been machined or polished with something far harder. Mainstream archaeologists sometimes find circular grooves on ancient stone floors and shrug them off as ritual patterns. Sure, rituals with measurable torque ratios. You try to imagine what this contraption did. Power generation? Some kind of hydraulic pump? There's a channel nearby, narrow and lined with residue that looks suspiciously metallic. Maybe mercury? Once? Mercury was used in ancient Indian and Chinese engineering to balance or lubricate heavy devices. So maybe this wasn't symbolic at all, it was functional. You tap the gear. It rings again, deep and resonant. You think of the harmonic plates from earlier and feel a faint chill. What if this whole city once sang a network of tuned machinery humming like a planetary engine? You wipe sweat from your forehead. The sun's climbing, the air thick with dust. And still, you can't shake the idea that you're walking through the skeletal remains of technology lost to time. The ancient Tartarians, if they existed, might not have been magicians or mystics, but engineers operating on principles we've yet to rediscover. That's the fringe view. Of course, the idea that Tartaria was a hyper-advanced pre-industrial empire wiped from history after a reset. The mainstream says nonsense. These ruins belong to later cultures or are misidentified natural formations. But the precision, the machining symmetry, those aren't natural. Even skeptics struggle to explain them away. A few years ago, an independent researcher, someone with too much free time and a YouTube channel suspiciously like yours, found microscopic striations on carved stones from Samarkand. The lines matched modern milling patterns. Impossible, said academia. Coincidence, said the journals. But the instruments don't lie. You brush dust from another part of the structure. There's a shaft here hollow, leading down at an angle. You drop a pebble in and count the seconds. It hits something far below, metallic, echoing, maybe a water chamber. Maybe not. The sound is too clean, too precise. You imagine this place in its prime. Turbines spinning, water rushing through marble conduits, gears turning under domed halls. Maybe these machines powered lighting those cold, smokeless lights chronicled in strange 18th century texts describing glow globes used in Tartarian cities. The descriptions sound fantastical until you remember phosphor and magnetism exist. You smile faintly. They built steampunk before it was cool. Joke number one, because sleep deprivation demands humor. You wander deeper among the ruins. The structures grow more complex arches interlaced with metallic rods, slabs with embedded grooves, plates that once fit together like clock parts. Everything is aligned with that same obsessive geometry. Even decay seems orderly. At the center of the site, a ring of blackened stone marks what might have been an energy chamber or, if you ask conservative archaeologists, a ceremonial plaza. You crouch again, tracing a line in the floor. The burn pattern spirals outward like the trace of an explosion, but there's no debris, no char, no soot. Just vitrification. The stone itself melted and reformed, smooth as glass. A fire that burned cold. As one 19th century explorer wrote in his journal before conveniently disappearing from records. You picture an energy core collapsing, or a generator overloading in silence. Maybe that was the end, or maybe it was the beginning of the erasure. A glint catches your eye. You dig it free, a shard of something that looks like bronze but feels too light. The edges are etched with microscopic triangles, almost like binary code, though far too ancient to be digital. You pocket it. It's probably nothing. Probably. A little wind picks up, carrying sand in whispering sheets. You turn, and for a heartbeat, the dunes seem to ripple, revealing ghost outlines of towers, domes, bridges suspended in mirage. The city flickers back into half-existence. You blink, and it's gone. Your brain insists it was a heat trick. Your spine disagrees. Nearby, you spot what might be an inscription. Not letters, exactly more like vector lines arranged in a spiral. A researcher once called these control glyphs, though he never explained what was being controlled. Each one encodes ratios of pi and phi, the mathematics of natural harmony. Buildings that obey these ratios produce calm acoustics, stable resonance, and structural perfection. But here, they seem to map the whole city's frequency like a tuning chart for architecture. You laugh softly. Who needs zoning laws when you've got cosmic harmonics? Joke number two. It echoes oddly, carried away by wind that smells faintly metallic. A small tremor shakes loose dust from the ruins. The hum intensifies for a moment, then fades. You freeze, heart thudding. The idea that something beneath you might still be running after all this time is both terrifying and comforting. Terrifying because machinery that doesn't die is unnatural. Comforting because it means they really existed. You look up. The horizon blurs, the sun sinking into copper haze. For a moment, you see yourself reflected in a slab of fused stone, your outline distorted, stretched, ghostly. You look like one of them. Before leaving, you kneel beside the marble turbine again and press your ear to it. There's sound, deep, rhythmic, like breathing under rock. It's probably wind, or maybe not. A mainstream fact for grounding. Ancient Persian qanats and Roman aqueducts did use advanced hydraulic engineering, creating underground channels and pressure systems centuries before modern pumps. So, It's not impossible that Central Asian builders had their own variations, but none on this scale. None carved from marble that rings like a tuning fork. You wipe your hands and whisper, "Engines of stone and steam," again, just to hear it echo. Somewhere beneath, the city hums faintly as if proud you noticed. Joke number 3 comes easy this time. If this starts glowing, I'm running straight to National Geographic. The wind laughs for you, scattering grit against the turbines. The sound is almost like applause, or maybe warning. Hard to tell. You take one last look at the ruins, those impossible gears locked in timeless silence, and start walking east again, toward the next anomaly glinting on the horizon. Somewhere ahead, a shimmer of glass catches the dying sun. Whatever Tartaria was, it's not finished telling its story. The horizon melts into a pale gold as you trudge toward what appears to be another ruin. But something about it glimmers oddly. A faint sheen of fused sand catches your eye, almost like sunlight trapped in stone. You step closer and realize these aren't ordinary walls. They're translucent, smooth, and so perfectly fused that the seams between blocks vanish into nothingness. Your fingers brush the surface, and it hums faintly, a vibration that travels through your bones. Sky domes. That's what the old journals called them. Circular, towering structures, seemingly carved from sand and stone but hardened into a glass-like translucence that reflects and bends light. Mainstream archaeologists label them as early glazing experiments or ritual structures, but the symmetry, scale, and precision suggest a knowledge of material science far beyond the supposed era. You imagine builders experimenting with heat, pressure, and chemistry, achieving results centuries ahead of their time. You wander around a semi-collapsed tower. Sunlight pours through its upper sections, scattering across the desert floor in fractured prisms. Tiny shards of fused material are embedded in the sand around you. Some glint like gemstones. Others pulse faintly as if charged by residual energy. There's a smell ozone, faintly metallic, layered with the warm, dry scent of earth. Fringe researchers claim these domes once acted as energy collectors, harnessing solar and geomagnetic currents simultaneously. Conventional historians scoff, of course, dismissing it as speculative reconstruction, but the physical evidence stirs an uneasy curiosity. The scale of the work astounds you. Each dome spans dozens of meters, supported not by modern steel frameworks but by interlocking arches of the same fused material. The structures are impossibly light yet unyielding, defying the logic of simple masonry. You run your hands over a collapsed section. The edges are sharp, almost surgical, as though shaped with tools that could manipulate both heat and pressure with uncanny precision. You pause at the base of a partially preserved dome and notice a series of channels etched into the stone. They curve and twist like veins, leading toward the central apex. Your mind plays through possibilities. Water channels? Air circulation? Energy conduits? The grooves are too systematic for decoration. They hint at function, perhaps even machinery. You can almost hear the hum of currents that may have once coursed through them. Some reports from travelers centuries ago describe the domes glowing faintly at night, as if filled with captured sunlight. You crouch to inspect a fragment on the ground. It's warm to the touch. Could this be residual solar energy? A chemical reaction? Or just the imagination of those long gone? Scholars debate the possibility that ancient civilizations experimented with energy storage far before the Industrial Revolution. It's tantalizingly plausible, yet frustratingly unverifiable. As you move between domes, you notice tiny fractures filled with crystalline formations. They glint in the fading sun, like stars captured mid-descent. The air feels charged, tingling against your skin. You shiver, not from cold but from the sensation of standing within structures designed with an intelligence that seems deliberate, even sentient. Above you, the tallest dome has collapsed inward, revealing an interior latticework of spiraling arches. The geometry is mesmerizing, perfect helices and concentric rings, repeating with mathematical precision. You recall something a historian whispered. Tartaria may have understood architectural resonance, creating buildings that harmonize with natural frequencies. Fringe accounts expand this, suggesting these domes could channel energy, sound, or even consciousness. Mainstream scholarship remains skeptical, labeling it speculative, yet the alignment of shapes and materials is undeniable. Walking across the central plaza, you find an archway almost entirely intact. Its transparency allows you to see the shadows of other domes beyond, refracting sunlight in prismatic patterns. You kneel and run your hands along the smooth surface. Tiny etched markings hint at some kind of notation, architectural, astronomical, or symbolic. The lines curve into spirals and stars, intertwining with the lattice of the dome itself. Whoever built this thought in terms of ratios, resonance, and perhaps even cosmic alignment. The wind stirs, carrying sand that glows faintly in the refracted sunlight. You imagine these domes alive once, pulsing with collected energy. Sunlight trapped and amplified, harmonized with the landscape, and perhaps even the sky itself. They were not just buildings. They were instruments, conduits, or perhaps both. A lone stone fragment shifts beneath your foot. You pick it up, and its weight surprises you, lighter than stone, heavier than glass. It's smooth, warm, humming faintly. You whisper under your breath, joking to yourself, "Welcome to the solar spa of ancient Tartaria." The vibration seems to respond, faintly echoing through the plaza. You trace the edges of the main dome, noticing the way each block interlocks with perfect precision. Not mortar, not adhesive, just precise geometric alignment. The curvature allows maximum light capture and minimal material stress, a design principle that engineers today would study and marvel at. You realize that these domes, though silent and broken, were masterpieces of physics and aesthetics intertwined. And then you look up at the sky. The sunlight hits the apex, scattering across the surrounding ruins in a lattice of light and shadow. The effect is mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. For a moment, you feel the intention of the builders in every curve and arch, as if the city itself is aware of your presence. You step back and let your hands fall to your sides. The domes, the glass-like towers, the crystalline shards scattered across the plaza, they all hum with a memory of brilliance long erased from textbooks. You wonder, was Tartaria merely advanced, or were its architects operating on a level of knowledge humanity has forgotten? Mainstream historians call it impossible. Fringe theorists call it energy architecture. The truth remains suspended, like sunlight trapped in sand. As evening descends, the domes glow softly in fading light, refracting every color of the horizon. You walk away slowly, leaving the shimmering towers behind, but the resonance lingers in your bones. Something about these structures defies time, refusing to collapse entirely into history. The sun dips behind the last dome, leaving the plaza awash in muted hues. You know you've seen evidence of a civilization whose brilliance predates comprehension, and somewhere, far beneath the sand, perhaps the energy still hums, waiting for the right eyes to notice. The desert stretches endlessly as you trudge toward a ridge, where the horizon seems to fold back on itself. You pause, catching your breath, and notice that the sand here isn't just sand. It glitters with tiny shards, fragments of what might once have been glass, metal, or even crystallized energy. Each step you take kicks up a whispering trail, a fine dust that sparkles like starlight under the midday sun. The air smells faintly of ozone and warmed stone, an electric tang that makes your skin prickle. Ahead, a series of arches emerges from the dunes, rising impossibly straight and intact, as though untouched by centuries of wind and time. Mainstream archaeologists would classify them as remnants of aqueducts or ceremonial gates. Fringe theorists, however, insist that these are energy conduits, part of a city-wide network designed to manipulate resonance, electricity, and perhaps even human perception itself. Standing beneath one of these arches, you feel a subtle vibration in your chest, almost imperceptible but undeniably there. The geometry seems to hum, and for a fleeting moment, you imagine the city alive again, channels glowing with collected power. The arches lead to what looks like a courtyard, its floor paved with enormous slabs of a strange, translucent material. The slabs are smooth, warm underfoot, and etched with a labyrinth of interlocking lines that trace both geometric and seemingly symbolic patterns. You kneel to examine one closely, noticing that the lines shimmer faintly in shifting sunlight, almost like circuits etched into the stone. It's hard to reconcile the sophistication before you with the supposed era of construction. You trace one line with your fingertip, following it as it twists and disappears into a small channel at the edge of the courtyard. Could this have been a form of energy distribution, or was it purely ceremonial? Scholars debate whether these patterns were functional, symbolic, or a combination of both. But your instincts insist on practicality. You hear the wind shift across the dunes and glance upward. The sky is clear, and the sun casts precise shadows that line up perfectly with the channels on the courtyard floor. It's hard not to think this was intentional. Perhaps the builders were mapping the sun, the stars, or some other celestial pattern. Fringe accounts suggest Tartarian architects aligned their entire cities with cosmic grids to harness natural energies. Skeptics dismiss this as coincidence or imaginative projection. Yet standing here, it feels deliberate. A shard of translucent material catches your eye. You pick it up, it's light yet dense, etched with microlines that seem almost like writing or notation. The edges are unnaturally smooth, polished beyond the capabilities of hand tools of the era. You wonder if these shards were fragments of devices, containers, or conduits, remnants of a system that once pulsed with power. The air vibrates subtly around you, and you swear the faintest whisper of sound, like the low hum of a machine, threads through the quiet desert. As you explore the courtyard, you notice raised platforms arranged in a precise grid. Each platform is capped with a circular indentation, perfectly sized to hold a sphere or dome. The platforms are spaced so uniformly it's unsettling, as though the city planners followed a mathematical script rather than improvising according to terrain. Walking between them, you imagine massive orbs, perhaps glass or metallic, rotating slowly, catching sunlight, casting complex reflections across the courtyard. It's almost theatrical, functional, and artistic at once. You pause at the edge of the courtyard, where a series of channels leads downhill into the dunes. Some are wide enough to walk through, others barely a foot across. Each one is lined with the same glass-like material, reflecting light from every angle. You step into one, the walls smooth under your hands, and feel a faint warmth as though the channel is absorbing and radiating energy simultaneously. It's eerily quiet, yet the hum beneath your feet grows stronger, almost palpable. Could these channels have been part of a system that powered the city, or perhaps something more esoteric, beyond the understanding of modern engineering? You climb out and continue along a raised ridge overlooking the city. From this vantage point, the grid-like precision of the entire layout becomes apparent. Streets, plazas, and channels form a geometric network that stretches to the horizon. You can trace paths that intersect at perfect right angles, arcs that curve like spirals, and avenues that align with points in the sky. The sheer scale of planning suggests an advanced understanding of geometry, physics, and possibly energy systems. Your gaze drifts to a collapsed tower in the distance, its upper sections fused into a smooth dome that glows faintly in the late afternoon sun. You notice what looks like a series of vents or channels radiating from its base, spiraling into the surrounding city. If the theory about energy distribution is correct, this could have been a central hub, a control center or generator, amplifying forces across the urban grid. You can't shake the thought that you're standing amidst a city designed not merely for habitation, but for interaction with forces we've long forgotten or misunderstood. Kneeling beside another shard, you discover etched symbols resembling constellations and geometric forms combined into a strange hybrid script. The lines spiral inward, overlapping with channels that might have carried energy or water. It's an elegant, deliberate integration of design, function, and symbolism. Scholars would argue endlessly over whether these markings were practical, religious, or purely decorative. You let your fingers trace the curves and imagine the builders studying the stars, the flow of air, the subtle pull of magnetic currents, designing a city in resonance with the cosmos itself. The sun begins to sink behind distant dunes, casting elongated shadows that stretch across the plaza. The glowing shards, the fused towers, and the interlocking platforms all seem to awaken under the fading light. You step back, feeling the hum settle into your bones. This city, long erased from maps and memory, still speaks. It doesn't shout. It hums, resonates, waits, and you realize you're only beginning to understand its language. The evening wind carries a faint metallic tang as you descend toward the next cluster of ruins, and your footsteps crunch over gravel that feels strangely engineered, too uniform, too deliberate, as if each stone was chosen and laid with precision. Ahead, the remnants of a massive bridge span a shallow, dry riverbed. Its arches, though fractured, rise in perfect symmetry, and you can see the ghost of an ancient roadway etched faintly into the stone. The angle of each arch is exact, as if calculated to withstand forces you can barely comprehend. You run your hand along the remaining railing. The surface is smooth, warm, and strangely flexible under pressure. Mainstream archaeologists would call this weathered sandstone, but your instincts tell you otherwise. Embedded in the stone are faint metallic veins, twisting beneath the surface like roots, shimmering slightly when touched by the last light of day. Fringe researchers suggest these veins might have carried energy, perhaps power for illumination, mechanical devices, or unknown technologies. Skeptics shake their heads, attributing it to mineral deposits, but your eyes insist it is something more intentional. Crossing the bridge carefully, you notice channels carved into the roadway, parallel grooves that converge toward the center. At first, they look like wheel tracks, but the spacing is too consistent, the depth too regular. Could these have guided vehicles or chariots? Or maybe they were conduits for liquids or energy. The grooves hum faintly under your palm, a vibration that sends a shiver up your arm. You glance at the surrounding terrain. The city continues in perfect grid lines, streets and channels stretching for miles in every direction, some buried under dunes, some barely visible. The scale is staggering. Whoever built this didn't just plan a city, they plotted an entire civilization, engineered down to the placement of each street and each structure. And then you notice the shadows shifting in the low sun. Long, thin lines, perfectly parallel, cutting across the grid. You recognize them from satellite images, energy lines, ley lines, or perhaps remnants of a long-lost urban network. A collapsed structure nearby draws your attention. Its walls are fused into a translucent material, the same as the domes you saw earlier. Faint inscriptions trace along the edges, geometric patterns intertwining with what might be astronomical symbols. You run your fingers across them, feeling the subtle bumps and grooves. There is an elegance here that is impossible to fake, every line and curve intentional, purposeful. Fringe accounts describe such structures as energy amplifiers capable of drawing power from the earth itself. Academic papers dismiss these ideas as pseudoscience. Yet standing here, you feel the city pulse, faintly, beneath your feet. The bridge leads to a plaza, vast and open, with remnants of towering structures rising on all sides. Their arches and columns have been worn by centuries, yet the geometry remains immaculate. You notice one column with a spiral staircase carved internally, still intact. Running your hand along the steps, you feel subtle vibrations, like echoes of movement long past. You wonder who climbed these stairs, and for what purpose. Was this a ceremonial structure, a residence, or part of some mechanical system? The plaza's floor is paved with massive slabs, interlaced with channels forming geometric patterns. You crouch to examine them, noting small nodes and indentations at intersections, perhaps mounts for devices or markers for alignment. Sunlight catches the edges, highlighting the precision of each cut. You trace a path through the plaza, imagining it alive with people, vehicles, energy. Perhaps sunlight or magnetism was harnessed here in ways long forgotten. In the distance, a large, collapsed dome dominates the skyline. Its surface, fused into a near-glass translucence, reflects the last golden rays. Tiny cracks run across it, yet the curvature remains perfect. You notice faint shadows of geometric symbols etched inside, visible through the translucence. You wonder what purpose they served: astronomical mapping, energy distribution, or perhaps a combination of both. Scholars debate endlessly whether Tartarian structures had practical or symbolic intent. And here, the line blurs completely. You step carefully around a series of debris fragments and pause to examine one shard. Its edges are warm, smooth, and etched with lines resembling circuitry, though centuries too old for any known electronics. Could it have been part of a device, a conduit, or a structural component that interacted with the city's energy? Your fingers trace the pattern, imagining currents of light or power pulsing through the channels. Above, The sky shifts to deep orange, and the city casts long, geometric shadows. You walk back toward the bridge, your mind absorbing the meticulous planning, the impossible symmetry, and the faint hum that seems to emanate from the stones themselves. Every step, every angle, every groove whispers knowledge lost to time. You pause at the edge of the riverbed, looking back at the grid lines stretching into the distance. It's almost incomprehensible, the scale, the precision, the energy embedded in every structure. And yet, despite centuries of decay, despite sandstorms and human ignorance, the city persists, not in full glory, but in resonance. Its intent is legible to those who notice. A wind gusts, scattering sand across the plaza, and the hum fades slightly, like a lullaby fading at dusk. You take a deep breath, feeling both awe and exhaustion. For all the mysteries, one truth is clear. Tartaria's architects understood principles far beyond their time, leaving behind cities that defy the chronology of history itself. Dusk settles over the desert, softening every edge, and turning the broken city into a canvas of shadow and gold. You trudge carefully along a narrow ridge, sand shifting underfoot, listening to the distant whisper of wind across the ruins. Ahead, you see the remains of a massive tower, half buried in dunes, its surface fused and polished to a high sheen. It reflects the dying light, sending fractured rays dancing across nearby walls. There's an almost imperceptible hum, a vibration you feel in your chest, and you pause to take it in. This place is alive in ways your rational mind struggles to quantify. The tower is more than a monument. It seems functional. Grooves spiral along its exterior, etched into the fused material in perfect, unbroken lines. You crouch to examine them. The spirals are too uniform to be decorative, almost like the tracks of some long-forgotten mechanism. Fringe theories propose that Tartarian cities employed advanced hydraulics or even forms of energy harnessing, channeling natural forces through their architecture. Scholars debate the plausibility, citing a lack of corroborating evidence, yet the precision before you is undeniable. You step closer and notice a series of platforms surrounding the tower. Each platform is crowned with a circular recess, smooth and polished, perfectly sized to hold a sphere or dome. Sunlight falling across them casts prismatic patterns, and you imagine massive spheres rotating slowly, catching and reflecting light, perhaps as part of an energy system or celestial observatory. Mainstream historians attribute such formations to ceremonial purposes, but your instincts hint at technology hidden behind artistry. As the wind shifts, you catch a faint metallic tang, like ozone mingling with stone. You brush sand from a shard nearby, revealing micro-etched lines resembling circuitry. The lines spiral and intersect, forming a pattern that seems both geometric and symbolic. Could this have been a control device, a structural stabilizer, or a conduit for energy? Fringe accounts would nod enthusiastically, suggesting lost Tartarian technology capable of feats that would stagger modern engineers. Skeptics remain unimpressed, attributing the markings to chance or natural erosion. You follow a channel carved into the ground, one of many that snake through the surrounding ruins. Its walls are polished smooth, reflecting the faint glow of the tower. Walking through it, you feel a subtle vibration, like the echo of currents once flowing through this network. It's tempting to dismiss the sensation as imagination, yet the hum persists, rhythmic and deliberate. The channel leads to a partially collapsed dome, whose fused surface glows faintly in the twilight. Its structure mirrors the spirals of the tower, suggesting a city-wide design principle linking form, function, and energy distribution. Above, stars begin to emerge. You notice that certain points in the city align perfectly with celestial markers, hinting at an astronomical purpose embedded in the architecture. Some scholars propose these alignments were symbolic, while fringe theorists argue they were functional, part of a system to harness cosmic energy. You trace the patterns with your eyes, imagining an entire city synchronized with the heavens, each structure resonating with light, sound, or some lost force. You kneel at the base of a wall and examine small nodes etched into the stone. They form a grid that corresponds with the spirals and platforms you've seen. The alignment is meticulous, suggesting planning on a scale that modern urban designers would envy. Some nodes contain tiny shards, warm to the touch, pulsing faintly as if carrying residual energy. It's impossible to say what their function was, but the effect is undeniable. The city feels like a living organism, its heartbeat faint but present beneath the ruins. The air is thick with the scent of warm stone, sand, and that subtle metallic tang. The low hum continues, almost melodic now, weaving through the arches and channels. You step back, letting your gaze sweep across the towers, domes, and platforms. The interplay of light, shadow, and structure creates an impression of order and intelligence far beyond the supposed era. You catch yourself whispering, "They knew what they were doing," half joking, half in awe. A shard shifts under your foot, reflecting the last rays of sun. You pick it up, feeling its unusual warmth and weight. Its edges are impossibly smooth, etched with patterns that seem to respond to your touch. A light breeze scatters sand across the plaza, carrying the faint hum along with it. For a moment, the city seems to pulse in response to your presence. You walk slowly away, the tower shrinking behind you as the desert swallows the light. The resonance lingers in your chest, a reminder that the city's creators were not just builders, but engineers, artists, and perhaps something more. Tartaria, in its vanished glory, left behind not just stone and sand, but a network of energy, geometry, and design that continues to whisper across centuries. Night drapes the ruins in a muted cloak of shadow and silver moonlight. You move cautiously through streets that stretch in perfect grids, the patterns barely discernible, until you lift your eyes to the faintly glowing shards embedded in the pavement. Each step sets up a soft crunch, the sound amplified in the desert's stillness. The city hums quietly, not with life as you know it, but with a subtle vibration that seems to resonate from the ground itself. You pause, feeling it pulse faintly in your chest, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Ahead, a series of towering obelisks rise from the sands. Their surfaces are fused and polished, reflecting moonlight in fractal patterns that dazzle your eyes. Mainstream archaeologists would call them ceremonial markers, monuments to power or ritual. Fringe theorists insist they were part of a sophisticated energy grid, designed to harness solar, lunar, or geomagnetic forces. Scholarly debate rages, but the structure's precision is undeniable. Straight edges, perfect angles, and surfaces so smooth they seem almost alive. You wander closer, tracing the lines and channels carved into the obelisk's bases. Grooves snake along the stone, converging into small recesses. Could they have housed devices, perhaps spheres or crystals that captured and channeled energy? You crouch to examine a shard, its edges smooth and warm under your fingertips. The patterns etched into it resemble circuitry, but centuries too early for anything remotely electrical. Fringe theories call these resonance conduits or energy amplifiers. Skeptics scoff, yet the vibration beneath your feet suggests there is more here than mere stone. Moving through the plaza, you notice a series of circular platforms, each capped with a shallow basin. In your mind's eye, you see them glowing faintly, perhaps reflecting the moonlight or channeling some invisible force. Some scholars suggest they were water reservoirs. Others, altars. Fringe researchers claim they were part of a city-wide energy matrix, synchronized to the sun, the moon, and perhaps even distant celestial bodies. The exact purpose remains a mystery, yet the precision of their placement implies intentionality, not coincidence. The streets around you are lined with low walls, fused into single sheets of translucent material. They catch the moonlight and refract it across the plaza in geometric patterns, producing a faint, almost hypnotic glow. You notice fine channels running along the tops of these walls, interconnecting the platforms, obelisks, and towers. Could these have been energy conduits, water channels, or something more esoteric? Scholars debate endlessly, and you find yourself straddling the line between skepticism and awe. A distant structure draws your attention. A massive dome, partially collapsed, but still towering above the surrounding ruins. Its interior latticework is visible through gaps, revealing interlocking arches and spirals that mimic patterns you've seen elsewhere in the city. The geometry seems designed to optimize both light and structural integrity. Some fringe accounts suggest that such domes could have functioned as amplifiers, focusing energy collected from the environment into the heart of the city. Mainstream scholars remain skeptical, citing lack of corroborative evidence. Yet the engineering logic is compelling. You step closer and notice small nodes etched into the base of the dome, aligned with channels that radiate outward like veins. The nodes are warm to the touch, the vibration stronger here than anywhere else. You whisper to yourself, half in jest, "Welcome to the Tartarian Tesla lab," but the faint hum beneath your hands makes the joke feel oddly literal. Could these structures have harnessed natural energy, distributing it across the city in a sophisticated network, or were they purely ceremonial? The debate hangs in the air, unanswered and tantalizing. Exploring further, you discover fragments of smaller structures, their walls fused into translucent panels, etched with spirals, stars, and geometric symbols. Some fragments contain grooves too precise for hand tools, curving and intersecting in ways that suggest advanced knowledge of geometry and physics. You trace the lines with your fingertips, imagining currents of energy or light flowing through them. The sensation is uncanny. The city seems to respond to your presence, vibrating faintly as if acknowledging your curiosity. The desert air chills slightly as the night deepens, carrying with it the scent of warm stone and distant flora. The faint hum persists, threading through the ruins, tying together obelisks, platforms, and domes into a silent symphony. You realize that every element, position, shape, material is connected, forming a network designed with intelligence and purpose. It is a city alive in its own right, a whispering reminder of knowledge lost to time. You step back, letting the scale of the ruins sink in. Streets, platforms, obelisks, and domes extend in a precise, deliberate pattern, defying conventional timelines and challenging everything you thought you knew about ancient civilizations. The city hums softly, its energy almost tangible, and for a moment, you feel the weight of its forgotten genius pressing against the quiet night. The first light of dawn spills across the ruins, softening the jagged edges of collapsed towers and casting long, golden shadows over the translucent streets. You trudge through the narrow pathways, each step stirring up clouds of fine, glittering dust that clings to your skin. The air is dry but carries a faint metallic scent, a reminder that this city is not ordinary, that its stones are more than mere rock. They are fused, imbued, or somehow alive with lingering energy. Ahead, you spot a row of partially preserved domes, each rising like glassy sentinels from the sand. The surface shimmers in the morning light, refracting it into patterns that move across the ground, like tiny auroras dancing on the plaza. You run your fingers along one dome's edge. The material is smooth, warm, and surprisingly light. It hums faintly beneath your touch, a vibration that resonates deep in your bones. Mainstream historians call this high-quality masonry or ritual architecture, but the precision, translucence, and subtle vibration suggest something far more sophisticated. Fringe researchers whisper of energy capture, solar amplification, and even sound resonance. Scholarly debates rage, but here, there's evidence you can feel as much as see. Between the domes, you notice channels carved into the ground, wide enough for a small cart or device to pass through. Some are filled with fine dust, others partially collapsed. Their paths converge into a central plaza, forming a network so precise it reads like a map of energy or water distribution. Could these channels have conducted liquids, currents, or something beyond comprehension? The lines are too clean, too deliberate, to be mere decoration. A collapsed platform nearby catches your eye. Embedded in it are nodes, small circular indentations, each etched with geometric patterns that spiral inward. You trace the grooves with your fingers, imagining the city alive, these nodes humming with collected energy. Fringe theorists insist these were part of an advanced system of energy distribution, amplifying natural forces across the city. Scholars counter, calling it imaginative speculation. Yet the physics of their layout, the angles, distances, and alignments defy easy dismissal. You move toward the tallest remaining tower, a structure half fused into one continuous curve that glows faintly in the morning light. Its surface bears micro-etchings, symbols intertwined with spiral channels. They seem both symbolic and functional, as if the builders encoded knowledge into every line. Could they have been astronomical charts, energy circuits, or both? The precision and complexity are astonishing. You run your hand across one spiral, feeling a faint warmth. A tiny whisper of sound threads through the stone, a residual hum, like a chord struck centuries ago but still vibrating. The plaza stretches before you, and you notice the layout aligns with points in the horizon where the sun rises and sets. Perhaps the city's geometry was synchronized with solar paths, casting light and shadow across specific nodes and platforms at key times of day. Some scholars see this as coincidence or religious symbolism. Fringe researchers see deliberate solar engineering, a city designed to harness and amplify natural energy cycles. Standing here, you feel the harmony, the intentionality, almost like the city itself is aware of the sun's passage. Shards of fused material litter the ground. You pick up one, noting its strange warmth and polished edges. Tiny etchings form geometric patterns that match channels in the plaza floor. Could this shard have been part of a larger system? A small component in a city-spanning mechanism? You imagine sunlight or energy flowing through it, spreading across the city like currents in a circuit. Beyond the plaza, you notice a semicircle of smaller structures, each dome-like but scaled for human interaction. Their interiors are etched with grids and spirals, resembling microcosms of the city itself. You crouch to inspect one closely, feeling the subtle vibration in the air. It seems intentionally designed, each shape and alignment reinforcing the others. You can almost hear a faint melodic resonance, as if the structures themselves were instruments, playing a song of energy long forgotten. As you step back, the sun rises higher, illuminating the domes, channels, and towers. The interplay of light, geometry, and vibration is mesmerizing. The city, though silent and broken, feels alive, whispering a story of knowledge, artistry, and engineering that modern historians can barely comprehend. And you realize, in that golden light, that Tartaria was not just advanced, it was audacious, building on principles lost to time, leaving behind ruins that hum faintly beneath the desert sky. You continue deeper into the city as the morning sun climbs, its warmth amplifying the faint vibration underfoot. The streets here are wider, paved with enormous slabs of translucent material that reflect sunlight in fractured rainbows. Each slab fits seamlessly with its neighbors, edges polished and interlocked in ways that seem almost impossible without machinery. You run your fingers along a seam and feel a subtle pulse, like the heartbeat of the city itself. Mainstream scholars call it exceptional craftsmanship. Fringe theorists insist these slabs were part of an energy network designed to channel forces across the urban grid. A massive gateway rises ahead, framed by two fused columns, their surfaces etched with spirals and geometric symbols. Sunlight streams through the central arch, casting intricate shadows on the plaza floor. You crouch to examine the carvings. They seem both decorative and functional, forming patterns that could align with celestial events or perhaps manipulate energy flows. Scholars debate whether such structures were purely symbolic or engineered with scientific knowledge that has since been lost. You trace the grooves with your fingers, imagining currents of light or energy weaving through them. Beyond the gateway, you discover a cluster of towers, each fused into a single continuous form. Their surfaces shimmer with embedded crystalline veins, catching sunlight like captured fire. The tallest tower has a spiral staircase visible through translucent walls, winding to the apex. You wonder who climbed these stairs and for what purpose. Some fringe accounts suggest they were observation points for astronomical events or energy collection. Mainstream historians favor ceremonial or defensive explanations. Either way, the geometry is impeccable, designed with a sophistication that challenges conventional timelines. The ground between the towers is etched with shallow channels, forming an intricate network connecting platforms, obelisks, and domes. You kneel to examine a node where several channels converge. It hums faintly under your hand, almost as if the structure senses your touch. Could it have been a power junction, a conduit for water, or something else entirely? The possibilities swirl in your mind, each more tantalizing than the last. Fringe theories speak of energy grids, powering the city. Skeptics call it pseudoscience. Standing here, the debate feels academic. What matters is the evidence under your hands. You wander through the towers, tracing spirals and channels that repeat motifs seen elsewhere in the city. Tiny shards litter the floor, polished and warm to the touch, etched with patterns that mirror the larger structures. You feel as if you are walking through a fractal, each component reflecting the design principles of the whole. The city's logic is everywhere, in the spacing of platforms, the alignment of channels, and the curvature of walls. You can almost hear a faint resonance as sunlight filters through the translucent domes, illuminating the interconnected pathways. A collapsed dome nearby reveals its interior lattice, a spiral of interlocking arches so precise it seems engineered rather than built. You trace a line along the base and feel warmth radiate through the stone. Fringe researchers would call this an energy amplifier. Mainstream scholars would note the architectural ingenuity. You lean closer, trying to visualize the dome intact, functioning as part of the citywide network. Light, geometry, and vibration converge here in a way that seems deliberate. The city's scale becomes clear as you climb a small ridge overlooking the plaza. Grid lines stretch across miles of desert, channels and platforms extending to the horizon. Every element, arches, domes, obelisks, channels, fits into a coherent design, a system that suggests knowledge of engineering, astronomy, and perhaps even physics that modern science can barely explain. The air carries a faint hum, and the shards scattered around you glint as if acknowledging your presence. You pause at the edge of a raised platform, gazing down at the city that unfolds beneath the morning sun. Its streets, towers, and domes are not random. They are deliberate, purposeful, resonating with a sophistication that defies the historical timeline. You step back, letting your mind absorb the magnitude of it. Tartaria, or whoever built this city, understood principles of design, resonance, and perhaps even energy in ways that we have yet to rediscover. A breeze stirs, sending fine, glittering sand across the plaza. The hum beneath your feet settles into a gentle vibration, almost like a lullaby. You take a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the city linger in your chest. It is alive in memory and material, a whispering testament to knowledge lost but not entirely gone. You know that every step forward will reveal more mysteries, more marvels, more evidence that this civilization defies everything you thought you knew about history. By late morning, the sun casts a harsh white light across the translucent streets, and you shade your eyes, squinting at the remnants of what might have once been a grand civic center. Massive platforms rise from the ground, interlaced with grooves, channels, and nodes, their geometry precise enough to suggest intentional design rather than randomness. You crouch, feeling the surface beneath your palm. The material is smooth, warm, and seems to vibrate faintly in response to your touch, a sensation impossible to explain with ordinary stone. Mainstream archaeologists might call this exceptional sandstone, but your instincts insist it's something more advanced, something deliberate. A semicircle of towering pillars arches before you, each fused from base to apex, adorned with spirals, etchings, and embedded crystalline veins. Sunlight refracts through them in dazzling patterns, scattering across the plaza in kaleidoscopic shapes. Fringe theorists claim these pillars acted as energy conductors, amplifying natural currents through the city, while conventional scholars label it ritualistic architecture. You run your hands over a pillar, feeling the faint hum of resonance beneath the surface, and you can't help but imagine the city alive with energy, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. Between the pillars, shallow channels twist and converge into nodes. You crouch to examine one, noticing micro-etched symbols along the edges. The carvings spiral inward, forming complex geometric patterns that mirror motifs elsewhere in the city. Could these have been functional? Perhaps they channeled water, light, or energy across vast distances. Some fringe researchers suggest the city acted as a massive machine, each structure a cog in a system designed to manipulate natural forces. Skeptics scoff, attributing the patterns to artistic or religious intention, yet the precision is undeniable. A low platform catches your eye, its surface fused into a translucent sheet etched with interconnected spirals and geometric grids. You trace one line with your fingertip, feeling a subtle warmth. It hums faintly, vibrating through the stone and into your fingers. You imagine the city alive, light or energy moving through these channels, resonating with structures across miles. The thought is intoxicating. Fringe theories speak of energy cities capable of harnessing sunlight, magnetism, and even sound. Scholars dismiss the concept, but here, the sensation beneath your fingers suggests there may be something to it. You move toward the edge of the plaza, where a series of domes rise, fused and smooth, some fractured, some nearly intact. Their surfaces catch sunlight, scattering prismatic rays across nearby walls. You crouch to examine a shard fallen from one of the domes. It's warm, its edges polished beyond what hand tools could achieve, and micro-etched lines form spirals and star-like symbols. Could it have been a device, a conduit, or merely part of the architectural design? The vibration beneath your feet seems to answer vaguely. Like a whisper you can almost hear but cannot translate. The largest dome dominates the skyline, its interior lattice visible through gaps in the fused structure. Spirals, arches, and interlocking patterns create an intricate web that seems almost engineered to focus energy at its apex. You imagine currents of sunlight, air, or some unseen force flowing through these patterns, channeled with precision across the city. Some fringe theorists suggest that the dome was a generator or amplifier, part of a city-wide energy system. Scholars remain skeptical, yet the logic of the construction, the symmetry, the channels, the nodes, suggests deliberate function. You wander between the towers and domes, noting that every line, every curve, every platform aligns with another, forming a coherent network. Light, shadow, geometry, and vibration interact seamlessly across structures, creating a city that resonates as a single entity. The scale is staggering, the precision unimaginable without advanced planning and understanding of forces you can barely grasp. As you pause atop a raised platform, the city stretches beneath you, like a geometric tapestry. Channels, domes, obelisks, and towers align with one another, as if designed according to principles lost to modern understanding. A breeze carries fine sand that glints in the light, scattering across the plaza and catching in the grooves etched into stone. The hum of the city continues, subtle yet persistent, threading through each structure, each fragment of fused material. You take a deep breath, absorbing the enormity of it all. Tartaria was not merely advanced, it was audacious. Every platform, channel, dome, and pillar tells a story of knowledge and intent that challenges what you thought you knew about ancient civilizations. The city hums softly underfoot, whispering its secrets in vibrations and patterns, daring you to listen closely. The sun climbs higher, casting bright light across the translucent streets, and you trudge carefully over the massive slabs, feeling the faint hum beneath each step. The air shimmers with heat, mingling with the metallic tang of the fused stone. Ahead, a long avenue opens before you, flanked by rows of columns fused into near-perfect verticals. The spacing is precise, each column aligned with the next, forming a rhythm that is almost musical in its symmetry. Mainstream archaeologists would call it monumental urban planning, while fringe theorists insist the alignment was intended to channel energy, possibly drawing from the earth itself. Scholars debate endlessly, yet the sensation beneath your feet suggests there may be more to it. You wander between the columns, noticing grooves etched into the bases, converging towards central recesses. Could these have been supports for spheres, instruments, or conduits? You crouch and examine one closely, feeling the faint warmth and vibration of the stone. The grooves spiral inwards, intersecting with channels running along the ground. You imagine the city alive, energy moving through the network like blood through veins. Fringe theories suggest the city functioned as a single, living machine. Mainstream scholars remain skeptical but intrigued by the precision. At the avenue's end, a massive platform rises, topped with a circular indentation surrounded by etched symbols. The patterns spiral inward in an intricate geometry, repeating motifs seen across the city. You crouch, running your fingers over the carvings. They hum faintly under your touch, almost imperceptibly, yet enough to suggest intent. Could this have been a control point, a ceremonial stage, or an energy hub? Scholars argue about the possibilities, while fringe accounts imagine it as the heart of a city-wide energy grid. Nearby, a series of low domes, some fractured and some nearly intact, form a semicircle. Sunlight catches their fused surfaces, scattering into faint prismatic patterns on the ground. You pick up a shard fallen from one dome. The material is warm, its edges impossibly smooth, etched with spirals and geometric grids. It feels purposeful, a fragment of a larger design. You run your fingers along its grooves, imagining currents of light or energy once flowing through it. The vibration beneath your feet grows subtly stronger, as if resonating with the shard in your hand. You step toward a partially collapsed tower. Its surface is etched with interlocking spirals and lines, some forming patterns that seem symbolic, others functional. The base reveals a series of channels and nodes, all converging with astonishing precision. You wonder who designed this, who calculated the angles and proportions so meticulously. Fringe researchers suggest Tartarian architects understood principles of resonance, magnetism, and light, using them to amplify natural forces across the city. Scholars caution that such interpretations are speculative, yet the alignment and repetition are difficult to dismiss. Walking along a raised walkway connecting the towers, you notice tiny shards embedded in the stone, polished and warm to the touch. They form miniature patterns echoing the larger city layout. Could these have been sensors, miniature amplifiers, or simply decorative? The vibration beneath your feet suggests functionality beyond aesthetics. You follow the walkway, imagining currents flowing through channels, reflecting and refracting light, energy moving in ways invisible but perceptible in resonance. You arrive at a plaza where channels from multiple streets converge into a central node. The floor is etched with interlocking spirals, geometric grids, and star-like symbols. You kneel to examine them. The patterns are so precise that they could not have been accidental. Could this have been a power junction, a ceremonial site, or both? Fringe theorists argue that it amplified natural forces across the city, while conventional scholars maintain that ceremonial significance is more likely. Either way, the evidence speaks of deliberate, advanced design. Above, a partially intact dome reflects sunlight, revealing its interior latticework. Spirals and arches interlock in a way that suggests optimization for light, strength, and possibly energy flow. You imagine currents of solar, magnetic, or other natural energy moving through the city, synchronized with the geometry of platforms, domes, and channels. The hum beneath your feet threads through every structure, reinforcing the sense that this is a city built not just to exist, but to function as a cohesive, resonant system. You pause at the edge of the plaza, letting the patterns, geometry, and hum settle in your mind. The city's scale and precision defy conventional timelines, its architecture a testament to knowledge and skill that surpass what you imagined ancient civilizations could achieve. You take a deep breath, feeling the subtle vibrations in your chest, a reminder that the city, though broken and silent, is far from dead. It still resonates, whispering secrets of lost science, forgotten artistry, and the audacious minds that built it. The afternoon sun casts elongated shadows across the translucent streets, and you find yourself approaching a massive, partially collapsed amphitheater. Its seating terraces are carved from fused stone, each slab fitting seamlessly into the next, forming concentric rings that spiral inward with uncanny precision. You run your hand over one of the terraces. The material is smooth, warm, and pulses faintly beneath your touch. Mainstream historians would call this an example of urban theatre design, while fringe theorists whisper of energy amplification, acoustics, or even unknown technological purposes. Scholars debate endlessly, yet you can feel something here that defies ordinary explanation. Stepping into the amphitheater, you notice channels carved into the floor and seating, converging toward the center. Could they have guided water, light, or some other energy? You kneel to inspect a small node at the intersection of several channels. It hums faintly, vibrating beneath your fingers, almost as if alive. You imagine the city as a giant circuit board, each amphitheater, tower, and dome a functional component in a system whose complexity dwarfs modern understanding. The stage area, though fractured, still retains geometric etchings along its edges. Spirals, grids, and star-like symbols form patterns that echo motifs you've seen elsewhere in the city. You trace one spiral with a fingertip and feel warmth radiate subtly through the stone. Fringe accounts suggest such patterns could have harnessed solar, magnetic, or vibrational energy. While conventional scholars argue for ceremonial significance, standing here the debate seems academic. The evidence is under your fingertips. Above, partially intact domes allow sunlight to pierce through, illuminating the amphitheater with dramatic shafts of light. Dust floats lazily in these beams, glinting like tiny stars. You follow one beam to its source, a crystalline shard embedded in the dome's lattice. Its edges are impossibly smooth, etched with fine lines forming interlocking spirals. Could it have been part of an energy system? The hum beneath your feet responds, faint but perceptible, suggesting resonance. You wander the outer terraces and discover small alcoves, each with recesses and grooves carved with precision. Some contain fused shards, polished and warm to the touch. You trace the patterns etched into them, imagining currents of light or energy flowing through the channels. Fringe researchers call these amplification nodes, claiming they distributed energy throughout the amphitheater. Scholars remain unconvinced, yet the tactile evidence is compelling. The structures were designed with deliberate functionality. Walking toward the back of the amphitheater, you notice the seating terraces align perfectly with surrounding towers and platforms. Light and shadow interact across channels and nodes, forming patterns that suggest synchronization with solar or lunar cycles. Could this have been a calendar, an observatory, or an energy distribution system? Scholars debate endlessly, but the precision of alignment is undeniable. Beyond the amphitheater, a series of domes rises in concentric arcs, their fused surfaces glinting in sunlight. Channels snake between them, converging at nodes similar to those you've seen before. You crouch to examine one, feeling the warmth and faint hum beneath your fingers. The city's design principle becomes clear. Every structure is connected, each channel a conduit, each platform a node. The scale is staggering, the engineering sophistication far beyond what conventional history allows. You step back, letting your gaze sweep across the amphitheater and surrounding structures. Grid lines stretch into the distance, channels and platforms forming a coherent network that feels alive. Light, geometry, and vibration converge here as they do elsewhere, suggesting a city designed to operate as a single, interconnected system. You inhale deeply, feeling the resonance of the structures underfoot, and for a moment, the amphitheater hums faintly like it remembers voices long silenced. The desert wind picks up, scattering fine dust across the terraces. Sunlight glints off shards embedded in the stone, amplifying the sense of a city alive with hidden energy. You feel a strange exhilaration mixed with reverence. This was no ordinary city. Tartaria's builders conceived an urban organism, each piece engineered to function in harmony with the others. And even after centuries, the faint hum and precise geometry testify to knowledge lost but not entirely gone. The sun now hangs high, bathing the city in stark, almost clinical light. You walk along a raised causeway connecting two vast plazas, each paved with enormous fused slabs. The slabs are etched with channels and grids that intersect with geometric precision. You pause to run your hand along one seam. Warmth radiates faintly, accompanied by a subtle hum, almost imperceptible, but enough to set your chest vibrating in sympathy. Mainstream scholars call it extraordinary craftsmanship. Yet you can't shake the sense that there is something functional, something active still beneath your fingers. Fringe theorists would nod enthusiastically, labeling it an energy conduit or part of a citywide machine. The debate continues, but your senses insist that there's more here than mere aesthetics. You glance around the plaza. Towers, obelisks, and domes form a grid that stretches into the distance. Each element aligns with others, creating sightlines and geometric relationships that seem intentional beyond ceremonial design. Small nodes and channels interconnect the plaza, some empty, others housing fused shards or circular recesses. You crouch to examine one node. Etched spirals and star-like patterns converge perfectly. Could it have been a junction for harnessing sunlight or magnetic forces? Fringe theorists suggest as much, while scholars caution that interpretation remains speculative. The vibration beneath your palm makes dismissal difficult. A massive dome dominates the far end of the plaza. Its surface is translucent, fractured in places, yet still reflecting sunlight in prismatic patterns. You step closer, noticing the internal lattice, a complex web of interlocking arches and spirals. The geometry seems optimized to capture, direct, or focus something light, sound, or a force you cannot yet name. The hum intensifies as you approach, subtle but undeniable. Fringe researchers describe similar structures as amplifiers, designed to resonate with natural or cosmic energy. Conventional scholars prefer a functionalist or ceremonial explanation. But standing here, it's hard to accept anything so ordinary. Between the plaza and dome, smaller fused structures rise, each etched with intricate patterns. Channels spiral and interconnect, nodes punctuate the ground, and shards of fused material lie embedded in the floor. You pick up one shard. It's warm, its edges impossibly smooth, etched with micro-spirals that match the larger layout. Could this fragment have once been part of a mechanical or energetic system? The vibration beneath your feet seems to answer in the affirmative. You wander through a series of low terraces connecting the plazas. Channels in the flooring converge at small recesses, forming repeating geometric patterns. You crouch to trace them with your fingers, noting the precision and consistency. This is not random, it is deliberately engineered. Some suggest it was for water flow or drainage, others for ritual purposes. Fringe accounts insist these channels carried energy, resonating across the city in ways the eye cannot see. The faint hum beneath your hands supports the possibility, if not the proof. Above you, a row of obelisks rises, their fused surfaces catching sunlight. Each has etched grooves spiraling toward the apex, echoing motifs seen throughout the city. You trace a finger along one spiral. It's warm, the vibration stronger here, as if focused energy gathers at these points. Could these have been part of a citywide network, amplifying or directing some force? Scholars debate endlessly. Fringe theorists hypothesize freely, and you simply stand there, feeling the hum of history and possibility in your chest. A small, partially collapsed tower lies adjacent to the plaza. Its base is etched with interlocking channels and nodes, some containing tiny fused shards. You examine one node, the faint warmth beneath your fingertips blending with the hum beneath your feet. Could this be a power distribution point, a ceremonial focus, or a combination of both? The city's design suggests multifunctionality, a network of systems layered over each other, each reinforcing the other in harmony. You pause on the raised causeway, letting your gaze sweep across the plazas, domes, towers, and obelisks. The city stretches endlessly, every element aligned with its neighbors, forming a coherent, functional network. Light, geometry, and vibration converge into a single living pattern. The hum threads through your chest, echoing the interconnectedness of structures, channels, and nodes. This city, though silent and fractured, still resonates, whispering of knowledge, engineering, and artistry long forgotten. A gentle breeze stirs, scattering fine dust across the plazas. Sunlight reflects off shards embedded in the stone, glinting in time with the subtle hum. You take a deep breath, absorbing the scale, precision, and ingenuity of it all. Tartaria's builders conceived more than a city. They created a living network, a system of energy, geometry, and light that still murmurs faintly beneath centuries of desert silence. The afternoon shadows lengthen as you move through a narrow passage flanked by fused walls, each etched with spirals, grids, and strange star-like symbols. Dust hangs in the air, shimmering in shafts of sunlight that filter through fractures above. Your steps echo faintly, mixing with a soft, almost musical vibration rising from the ground. Mainstream archaeologists might call this a remarkable example of urban planning and masonry. Yet the faint hum beneath your feet suggests that these streets are more than just pathways. They are conduits in a network, alive with residual energy. Fringe theorists insist these grooves and channels were designed to harness cosmic or geomagnetic forces, while skeptics argue the evidence is circumstantial. Ahead, a wide plaza opens, framed by towering domes and obelisks. The domes are fused from base to apex, translucent and etched with repeating patterns of spirals and grids. Light refracts through their surfaces, casting geometric patterns across the plaza floor. You crouch to examine a shard embedded in one of the dome's foundations. It's warm to the touch and etched with microspirals that mirror the larger city layout. Could this have been a sensor, a component in an energy system, or merely decorative? The faint hum beneath your hands seems to suggest a functional purpose. Walking toward the largest dome, you notice a network of channels converging at nodes across the plaza. Some channels are wide enough for a person to walk through, others narrow and shallow, leading into recesses or basins. You follow one channel, tracing its path with your eyes and fingers. The patterns are deliberate and repeated, a language of geometry that you can feel as much as see. Fringe accounts would call this a distribution system for energy or resonance, while conventional scholars might argue it was ceremonial or symbolic. The sensation beneath your fingertips hints at something functional beyond ornamentation. The central dome looms above, its lattice partially intact, spirals and arches interlocking in an elegant web. Sunlight pours through gaps, illuminating the interior and highlighting embedded shards. You crouch to inspect one shard. Its polished surface is warm, etched with fine spirals and grids that correspond with channels and nodes elsewhere in the city. You imagine currents of light or energy moving through the city, guided by this latticework, flowing into channels and platforms in a symphony of geometry and resonance. Between the domes, you spot a series of low platforms and terraces. Each is etched with grooves that converge into nodes, forming repeating patterns seen across the city. You kneel to feel the vibration beneath your fingers. It's faint but persistent, as if the structures themselves are humming in quiet harmony. Could these platforms have been used to channel or amplify energy? Or were they ceremonial stages? Fringe theorists suggest the former, scholars often the latter. But the tactile evidence, the warmth, the hum, the precise layout leans toward deliberate functionality. As you explore further, you notice obelisks rising in rows, each etched with spirals converging toward their apex. The grooves are polished and smooth, reflecting sunlight in faint rainbows. You trace one with your finger, feeling warmth and vibration, imagining energy flowing through the city, harmonizing structures like instruments in a vast orchestra. Scholars debate whether such precision could have been achieved without advanced knowledge or tools, while fringe accounts insist it points to a lost civilization with extraordinary understanding of physics and geometry. A collapsed tower near the plaza reveals interconnected channels and nodes, some still containing shards etched with repeating patterns. You crouch to examine a shard, noticing how its etchings correspond with channels radiating across the plaza. Could this have been a junction for energy, or a ceremonial marker? The hum beneath your fingers grows slightly, and you imagine sunlight or vibration moving through the shard, resonating across the city in a network still perceptible centuries later. You step back, letting the plaza unfold beneath your gaze. Domes, obelisks, towers, channels, and nodes stretch outward in perfect alignment, a city engineered with coherence and purpose. The hum threads through every structure, the geometry resonates with your senses, and the interplay of light and shadow creates a rhythm that feels almost alive. This city is more than stone. It is a living network of knowledge, energy, and design, whispering faintly across the desert as if waiting for someone to understand it. A breeze stirs, scattering dust across the plaza. Sunlight glints off embedded shards, amplifying the sense of connection and resonance. You take a deep breath, feeling the subtle hum in your chest, the weight and wonder of a civilization that built not merely to exist, but to resonate across time and space. Tartaria, or its unknown architects, created a city that still speaks, softly but insistently, to anyone willing to listen. The late afternoon light casts a warm, golden hue across the city, illuminating fractured towers and fused streets that stretch toward the horizon. You step cautiously along a broad avenue, the slabs beneath your feet resonating faintly with each step. The vibration is subtle, a ghostly echo of something long gone but not entirely silent. Mainstream archaeologists describe the city's layout as remarkably advanced urban planning, while fringe theorists insist the streets themselves were conduits for energy, designed to channel solar, geomagnetic, or perhaps even atmospheric forces. Scholarly debate continues, but you can feel the hum threading beneath your palms and soles, a tangible reminder that something extraordinary once thrived here. Ahead, a semicircle of domes rises, fused into smooth, translucent surfaces. Sunlight refracts through the fractured layers, scattering prisms across adjacent platforms and channels. You crouch to examine one shard embedded in a dome's base, warm and smooth, etched with spirals and grids. It mirrors patterns elsewhere in the city. Could it have been a sensor or amplifier, part of a network designed to distribute energy across the urban grid? Fringe theorists would nod emphatically. Skeptics insist it's purely decorative. You feel the hum beneath your fingertips and wonder how ordinary decoration could generate resonance detectable centuries later. The avenue opens into a wide plaza dotted with obelisks. Each rises in precise alignment, etched with spirals and grooves converging toward the apex. You run your fingers along one groove, feeling warmth and subtle vibration. Could these obelisks have focused solar energy, magnetic currents, or sound waves? Fringe accounts suggest so, while mainstream scholars are cautious, citing a lack of direct evidence. You glance around. The obelisks form geometric patterns connecting nodes, terraces, and domes, suggesting a network that stretches across the entire city. A partially collapsed tower near the plaza reveals internal channels and nodes, some still housing shards with micro-etched spirals. You crouch and examine a shard, feeling warmth and subtle vibration. Could this have been a junction point, directing energy to multiple structures? You trace the channels and realize the precision is staggering. Every line, curve, and spiral corresponds with other structures, as if the city is a single integrated system. Fringe theorists call it a city-wide energy lattice. Skeptics attribute it to coincidence or advanced but conventional engineering. Walking through the plaza, you notice low platforms etched with interconnected grooves and nodes. You crouch to examine them, running your fingers along the channels. The faint hum persists, almost musical now. You imagine currents flowing through the city, amplified by domes, obelisks, and towers, creating a symphony of light, vibration, and geometry. The sense of deliberate design is overwhelming. This is a city engineered to function in harmony with forces you can barely comprehend. Above, a massive dome dominates the skyline, its translucent surface fractured but still shimmering. The internal latticework forms spirals, arches, and grids that interlock with astonishing precision. Sunlight streams through gaps, highlighting embedded shards. Could the dome have concentrated energy, light, or vibrations across the city? Fringe accounts suggest as much, while scholars debate the plausibility. You feel the hum intensify beneath your feet, resonating with the patterns etched into the dome. You step onto a raised platform connecting the plaza to adjacent streets. Channels, nodes, and shards converge here, creating a repeating pattern that echoes throughout the city. You crouch to trace one channel, feeling warmth and vibration along its length. This is no accident. Every element, domes, obelisks, terraces, and streets, is aligned with purpose. Light, shadow, and resonance converge into a coherent city-wide system. A gentle desert breeze stirs, lifting fine dust that glitters in the afternoon light. Sunlight catches shards embedded in the plaza, scattering reflections across platforms and towers. You pause to take a deep breath, feeling the subtle hum thread through your chest. Tartaria, or its unknown architects, built a city that resonates still, a living network of geometry, energy, and light. And as you stand in its golden glow, you realize the city's whisper is persistent, an invitation to witness, imagine, and marvel at knowledge lost, but not entirely gone. The sun begins its slow descent, and the desert air cools slightly, carrying a soft, dry breeze that lifts fine sand across the translucent streets. You move cautiously, the massive slabs beneath your feet humming faintly in response to each step. The sensation is subtle but insistent, threading through your palms, soles, and even chest. Mainstream historians describe these streets as a feat of engineering, remarkable for their scale and precision. Fringe theorists, however, insist the hum is no accident, that the streets were part of a city-wide system designed to channel unseen forces, possibly energy, resonance, or light itself. Scholarly debate persists, but here, you can feel the city alive beneath your touch. Ahead, a cluster of fused domes rises, fractured in places, their translucent surfaces scattering sunlight across channels and platforms below. You crouch to examine a shard embedded at the base of one dome, warm to the touch, its surface etched with interlocking spirals and grids. It mirrors patterns found throughout the city. Could this have been a sensor, a conduit, or part of an energy system? Fringe researchers nod emphatically. Conventional scholars caution against speculation. You feel the hum beneath your fingertips, and it becomes hard to dismiss the possibility. A partially collapsed tower near the plaza reveals a lattice of channels, nodes, and embedded shards. You crouch to follow the pattern of one channel. The geometry is precise, repeating motifs seen elsewhere in the city, forming a network that seems to connect plazas, terraces, and domes. Could this have been a distribution system for energy, light, or vibration? Fringe theories insist so. Mainstream scholars argue for ceremonial or symbolic function. Either way, the tactile evidence under your hands is undeniable. Walking along a raised platform, you notice that the obelisks and towers align perfectly with channels and nodes on the ground. Sunlight reflects off polished surfaces, casting prismatic patterns that seem to move as you shift your position. You crouch to examine an embedded shard, feeling warmth and a faint vibration. The alignment suggests that light, resonance, or some other force was concentrated deliberately, channeled, and distributed across the city. The hum intensifies subtly, as if acknowledging your presence. Between the domes, low terraces rise, etched with grooves converging into nodes. You trace one groove with a fingertip, feeling warmth and vibration traveling along it. Fringe theorists call these nodes amplification points. Designed to enhance or direct energy, scholars argue that they were symbolic or ceremonial. Yet the tactile and visual evidence suggests function beyond ornamentation. The city's design principle is unmistakable. Interconnectedness, repetition, and deliberate precision across miles of urban space. The largest dome in the cluster catches your eye. Its lattice of spirals, arches, and grids partially intact. Sunlight streams through gaps, illuminating embedded shards that glint like tiny stars. Could the dome have concentrated energy, sound, or light, feeding it into the network of channels and platforms below? Fringe accounts insist yes. Conventional scholars remain skeptical. Standing here, you feel the hum intensify beneath your feet, resonating with the dome's patterns, suggesting the possibility that the city was engineered as a single, integrated system. A gentle breeze stirs again, lifting dust that glitters in the late afternoon sun. You pause to take in the view. Domes, obelisks, towers, channels, and nodes stretching toward the horizon, each aligned with purpose and precision. Light, vibration, and geometry converge into a coherent system. The city resonates beneath your feet, whispering secrets of lost knowledge, of science and artistry that defy conventional timelines. You feel that pulse threading through your chest, a reminder that this was no ordinary settlement but a living organism of stone, light, and resonance. You step back, letting the golden light wash over the city. The shards embedded in platforms and domes catch the sunlight, scattering reflections across terraces and streets. The hum continues softly, a ghostly echo of a civilization that engineered not merely to exist, but to resonate. Tartaria's unknown architects built a network that endures in vibration, geometry, and light, a silent symphony that hums still, calling those who can feel it to witness, imagine, and marvel. The sun dips lower, painting the city in molten gold and deepening the shadows that pool in the channels and crevices of fused streets. You step carefully along the slabs, feeling the faint, persistent hum beneath each footfall. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. Scholars describe the city as a pinnacle of ancient engineering, noting its precise alignment and scale. Fringe theorists claim the vibration is a remnant of an energy grid designed to channel natural forces. You pause, letting the warmth of the stone seep into your hands, and for a moment, the line between science and legend blurs. Ahead, a semicircle of towering domes rises, fused and smooth, fractured in places, catching sunlight and scattering it in prismatic fragments across platforms and channels. You crouch to inspect a shard embedded in one dome's base. It's warm, polished, etched with interlocking spirals and grids patterns repeated throughout the city. Could this have been a sensor or part of an energy amplification system? Fringe accounts argue yes. Scholars remain skeptical, yet as your fingers brush its surface, the vibration beneath you seems to answer in kind. You move toward a plaza where channels converge at multiple nodes. The patterns are deliberate, repeated across terraces and platforms in a network of extraordinary precision. You kneel to trace one node with a fingertip. The stone hums faintly, warmth radiating through your hand. Fringe theorists would call this a distribution hub for energy or resonance. Conventional scholars argue it could be ceremonial. Standing there, feeling the pulse beneath your hands, you sense the city's logic, interconnectedness, repetition, and purposeful design across a sprawling urban canvas. A row of obelisks rises along one side of the plaza, each etched with spirals converging toward the apex. You trace one groove, feeling warmth and a subtle vibration. Could sunlight, resonance, or some other energy have been directed through these structures? Fringe accounts insist so. Mainstream scholars caution that speculation is unprovable. Yet, the alignment of obelisks with channels and nodes suggests an intent that transcends mere decoration. Adjacent to the plaza, low terraces and small platforms echo the same motifs. Channels spiral and converge, nodes punctuate the ground, and embedded shards reflect sunlight like captured starlight. You crouch to feel the warmth and hum beneath your fingers. Could these be amplification points? Distributing energy across the city, scholars debate their purpose. Fringe theorists hypothesize freely, and the evidence under your touch suggests function rather than mere ornamentation. Above, the largest dome in the cluster glimmers, its translucent surface fractured but still intact in places. Its internal latticework forms spirals, arches, and grids that interlock with astonishing precision. Sunlight streams through gaps, illuminating embedded shards. Could this have concentrated energy, light, or sound across the city? Fringe researchers assert yes. Conventional scholars remain skeptical. You feel the hum intensify beneath your feet, resonating with the dome's etched patterns. A soft breeze stirs dust across the plaza, glinting in the fading light. You pause, letting your gaze sweep over the domes, obelisks, towers, and channels stretching toward the horizon. The city's design is coherent, deliberate, and resonant. The hum threads through every structure, a faint, lingering echo of forces you cannot name. Tartaria was not merely built, it was orchestrated, a living network of geometry, energy, and light whispering across time. You inhale deeply, absorbing the scale, precision, and ingenuity. The shards embedded in platforms and domes glint. The subtle hum persists, threading through your chest. Tartaria's architects designed a city that still resonates, a living, breathing system of stone, light, and energy. And as the golden light fades, you feel the city's pulse, a whispering reminder of knowledge lost, yet not entirely gone. Twilight drapes the city in a soft amber glow, the shadows stretching long and blending with the lingering dust in the air. You walk slowly along the broad avenues, each slab beneath your feet warm and humming faintly, as if the city itself recognizes your presence. Mainstream historians marvel at the scale and alignment, calling it advanced urban planning, but fringe theorists insist these streets were designed to carry energy, vibration, or perhaps sunlight itself across vast distances. Scholars continue to debate, but the subtle hum threading through your souls is a language only perceptible to those who pause long enough to feel it. Ahead, a sequence of domes rises in concentric arcs. Their fused surfaces are fractured but retain a translucent glow, scattering shards of light across channels and platforms below. You crouch to examine one embedded shard, polished, warm, etched with interlocking spirals that mirror patterns throughout the city. Could this have been a sensor, an energy conductor, or a ceremonial marker? Fringe researchers nod emphatically. Conventional scholars remain skeptical, yet the vibration beneath your fingertips makes the notion of mere decoration increasingly difficult to accept. You step into a central plaza, where channels converge at nodes, arranged with meticulous precision. Running your hand along one node, you feel warmth and a subtle resonance, as if the city itself were humming in quiet acknowledgement. Fringe theorists call such points amplifiers, distributing energy through the city's urban lattice. Scholars argue for symbolic or functional, ceremonial purposes. Either way, the tactile sensation suggests deliberate design and interconnection beyond simple aesthetics. Obelisks rise along the edges of the plaza, etched with spirals converging toward their apexes. You trace a groove, feeling warmth and faint vibration, imagining energy, light, or resonance flowing through the structures, connecting towers, domes, and platforms. Scholars debate the purpose of these alignments, while fringe accounts describe them as part of a city-wide energy network. The hum beneath your feet seems to affirm the possibility. A massive dome dominates the skyline, its lattice of interlocking arches and spirals partially intact. Sunlight pierces the fractures, illuminating embedded shards that glitter like captured starlight. Could this dome have concentrated energy, amplified resonance, or acted as a focal point for some lost technology? Fringe researchers suggest yes. Mainstream scholars remain cautious. You feel the hum intensify beneath your soles, echoing the dome's internal geometry and reinforcing the sense that the city functions as a single, interconnected system. Walking along adjacent platforms and terraces, you notice repeating patterns, spirals, grids, and nodes, each precisely aligned with its neighbors. Embedded shards glint in the fading light. Channels converge, and subtle vibrations thread through the surfaces. Could the city have been an enormous energy machine, or merely a ceremonial marvel? The evidence, warmth, hum, alignment suggests that even if function is speculative, the city's creators had knowledge far beyond what conventional history allows. As the sun sinks behind distant dunes, the city is bathed in a golden to purple gradient, the shadows stretching and converging across channels, platforms, and terraces. Light scatters off shards embedded throughout, creating a kaleidoscope of color. You pause to inhale, feeling the subtle vibration thread through your chest and fingers. Tartaria was more than architecture. It was orchestrated energy, geometry, and light, designed to resonate across time and space. The hum lingers, whispering secrets of forgotten science, artistry, and audacious vision. The desert wind carries a faint metallic tang, stirring dust that glitters like tiny stars. You step back, taking in the domes, towers, obelisks, and channels stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The city hums quietly beneath you, a pulse echoing across centuries. Tartaria's architects built more than stone. They built a network that still resonates, whispering knowledge lost but not entirely gone. The amber light fades, leaving the city poised between day and night, still alive in vibration, geometry, and light. Night falls slowly over the city, and a cool breeze drifts through the fractured streets, carrying fine dust that glimmers faintly in the last traces of twilight. You walk along the broad avenues, feeling the gentle hum beneath each step, a reminder that the city is still alive in subtle resonance. Mainstream scholars marvel at the precision, the scale, the engineering, but fringe theorists insist this is more than masonry, a city designed to channel light, energy, and perhaps forces we have yet to understand. You pause, letting the faint warmth of the slabs seep into your hands, attuning yourself to the pulse that threads beneath the stone. Ahead, a semicircle of towering domes stretches into the night, their fused surfaces fractured, but still glimmering with residual luminescence. You crouch to examine an embedded shard, warm and etched with microspirals that echo patterns across the city. Could it have been a sensor, an amplifier, or part of a network designed to distribute energy? Fringe accounts would nod emphatically. Conventional scholars hesitate, yet the hum beneath your fingers is persistent, almost musical, suggesting that these streets, channels, and nodes are part of a coherent, city-wide system. You move through a central plaza where channels converge at nodes arranged with meticulous precision. Tracing one with your fingertip, you feel warmth and subtle vibration. Scholars debate whether these nodes served ceremonial purposes, practical engineering, or energy distribution. Fringe theorists assert they were part of a functioning system. You sense that the city itself offers an answer in the hum threading beneath your touch. Obelisks rise like sentinels, spirals etched toward their apexes. You trace a groove, feeling faint vibration, Light from the last rays of the sun and scattered starlight reflects off shards embedded in the stone, forming a lattice of glimmering patterns. Could this have been a channel for cosmic or geomagnetic forces, or merely symbolic? Fringe accounts insist it was functional. Scholars remain cautious, yet the alignment across obelisks, domes, and terraces suggests deliberate interconnection. The largest dome looms overhead, its latticework of arches and spirals partially intact. Sunlight has vanished, but residual luminescence from embedded shards paints subtle geometric patterns across the ground. You crouch, feeling warmth and resonance. Could this dome have concentrated energy, amplified vibration, or served as a focal point in the citywide system? Fringe theorists would argue yes. Scholars remain unconvinced. Standing beneath it, the hum beneath your feet threads through every structure, suggesting a coherence that transcends simple architecture. Walking along terraces and platforms, you notice repeating motifs of spirals, grids, and nodes, each precisely aligned. The embedded shards glint faintly in the night, channels converge, and subtle vibration threads through the city. You feel connected to the vast system, a network of geometry and energy engineered with purpose, intention, and precision. Could it have been a power system, a ceremonial complex, or something entirely lost to time? The evidence hints at all three. As darkness settles, the city is bathed in a silvery glow under the first stars. Shadows pool in channels, across terraces, and beneath towers. The subtle hum threads through your chest, your hands, feet, reminding you that this was no ordinary city. Tartaria was orchestrated, a living network of stone, light, and resonance, designed to persist and whisper across the ages. You step back, absorbing the geometry, energy, and vibration threading through the city's architecture. The night wind stirs, lifting dust that glimmers faintly like a constellation of tiny stars. You take a deep breath, letting the hum settle within you. Tartaria's architects created more than buildings. They created a city that resonates across centuries, a living organism of geometry, energy, and light. And as the darkness deepens, you feel its pulse, soft but insistent, whispering secrets lost to history yet not entirely forgotten.